Are you tired of the cookie-cutter approach to education that's stuck in the last century? Are you seeking a win-win situation where your family thrives, your kid's education is revolutionary, and you still get to chase your own dreams? Welcome to Unschooled Unleashed. Unlock your child's genius. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, an unapologetic rebel dad and promoter of what many consider to be educational anarchy. You know the world isn't going to be won by those that just toe the line. It's the innovators, the visionaries, and the resilient spirits that are going to thrive. Our mission here is to forge those world changers within our very homes with less stress, energy, and time. Unschooled Unleashed starts now. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Unschooled Unleashed. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, and today we're going to talk about how to make home education happen if you're financially strapped. We're going to talk about strategy. We're going to talk about just a whole bunch of little things that I've done. You know, don't take this as advice. Don't take it as concrete. But it's stuff that I've done. I used to teach a financial class to try and help people who were stuck in that mindset of they're trapped. And some people really are. And they need someone to walk them out. So that's kind of what this is. So if you're looking for ways to make home education happen and you just don't see it in sight, I'm going to give you some very practical things that you can do today to make this happen, especially if you're freaked out about what's going on in schools and you're looking around going, I need to make this happen. This episode's for you. So with that, let's dive in. Today, we're going to be talking about how to make home education happen. If you're a struggling family with your finances, a lot of times there's stuff you can do to really help with that. I know some people are stuck in tough spots, and I hear this message all the time. Oh, I wish I could do home education. I wish I could do what you guys are doing. But, you know, both of us have to work and childcare is just too expensive for us to be able to do anything like that. And I just think there's so many ways around that. And it's not been a necessarily easy road for us. So what I want to do in this episode is just pass on some of the things we've learned along the way to be able to make this happen. My wife has stayed at home with our children their entire childhood. So we have a 10, 8, and a 6-year-old right now. We've been doing home education since the very beginning. And she recently went back to work maybe about 9 months ago. And I work part-time. There's been times where we both take time off and we're both doing the homeschooling, home education thing together. But I think it's just something that is still tangible for the normal American household if you are able to prioritize. And it's a very, 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 very difficult task to be able to prioritize all of this, especially if it's new to you. But you have to make compromises, and that's the thing. It's some of this stuff is not going to be what you want to hear, and then you're going to say, no, I can't do it. But just remember that if that is the case, if you say, well, I'm not going to do that because we just can't, right? Like living in a smaller house is going to be one of my examples. Well, then you're choosing larger house over home education. Just be okay with that, and that's a fine choice. You can do that. But you need to be okay with that's your decision. All right? There are some people out there who may not be able to do it at all. I think it's a very small percentage. I don't think that's the majority of people, especially if you're listening to the show. You've probably been intentional with your life in many ways. So take it for what it's worth, and then make the decision that's best for you. So there's only 2 ways to really do this. If you're struggling with your finances, to be able to make home education happen to where you're at home enough to be able to make sure your kids are getting the resources and your time as needed, you can only do 2 things. 1, reduce your costs, your monthly costs or expenses, or 2, increase your income. And I think the secret sauce is being able to do both. But we're going to start off with reducing costs because I think it's just such an easy thing to tackle. It's hard to increase your income in many ways, but it's easy. There's so many things you can do to reduce your costs. And if you can reduce your costs enough, then living off one income starts to become feasible. So first, let's talk about living well below your means. And this is going to really just kind of encompass everything here, but some points I want to make with this are, if you're able to save $1, that's 100% back to you. Whereas if you're able to earn $1, you have to pay taxes on that. And that's not a full dollar. Okay. And the more money you earn, the more taxes you will have to pay in the United States with a progressive tax system. And unless you're able to finagle some money around in different ways, but I think most of you are probably going to be talking about like doing W-2, meaning you work for someone else. Even if you're a freelancer, you still have to, pay a lot of these taxes in the same way. So reducing your overall expenses and living well below your means is going to free up a whole bunch of money. And $1 saved is truly $1 earned in this case. Again, because you're not paying all these taxes and all this different stuff on it. So when you're able to free up more of your funds, you can then target that for other things. Excuse me. Start looking for ways to save some money. Some of those ways might be, like I said earlier, living in a smaller house. I know that the median square footage of a house in the United States being built today in 2024, excuse me, is 2,300 square feet. That's the median square foot size of a house. And the median cost is $420,000. This is according to Motley, and the square footage is reported by Bankrate.com. Man, I'm losing my voice today. Not good. But my point is, 2,300 square feet is massive. It might not seem that big to some of you because you have a house bigger than that, but I live in a 1,200 square foot house and I have 3 children. This is not an easy task, but really you only need 3 bedrooms, max, because you can stack kids in bunk beds. And if you have boys and girls, you just put all the boys in one room, all the girls in the other, and then you get 1 bedroom. And that's not even necessary. We actually have a 2-bedroom. We have all the kids in the same room, and we're redoing the attic. We already have it redone. I just haven't put air conditioning up there yet. But so we're not going to use it in the summer until I put that up there. But you could even have your bedroom in the dining room. And when you have young kids, it's not that big of a deal because they're always going to be around you anyway. And if they're not with you, they're sleeping. We did this when our kids were first born. We had, it was when we had more than one kid. We put one, the kid we already had, our oldest, in one bedroom, and then the newborn in another room. So that way it was more quiet. And then we moved our bed out in the dining room and just slept out there. And, we couldn't have company over and all these things, but you know what? It was better than us going into insane debt to be able to get a bigger house because we quote unquote needed it. Other things you can do is to reduce your expenses. You can start finding better ways to pay for health insurance. A lot of people have this as one of their big line items in the U.S. And you might want to go shopping for jobs and find a place that actually gives better coverage for health insurance. So they're going to pay more of the premium or more of the deductible or have a lower deductible, stuff like that. I think that's very important. For those of you who are outside the box thinkers like myself, health cost sharing ministries might be the way to go. And if you're not familiar with these health cost sharing ministries, go by many names, look into it. They are an alternative to health insurance. They're not insurance. They make that explicitly clear. But basically what it is it was invented through churches. Churches pooled their money together, and then as someone needed to go to the doctor for a problem, they would write them a check. And everyone pooled it together, and it acted like insurance. So there's plenty out there now. And the part of the premise was too that you would not pay a lot. You would pay out of your own pocket for any primary care stuff. Like if I just have a regular physical, I'm just going to go in there and do that. But we're only going to use this if we have to go to the emergency room or we need to see a specialist because we got a problem, all that stuff. So you may want to look into that. That might save you a lot of money. I know that at the time I was looking at it, we actually got insurance through my wife's employer and they pay a good portion of the premium. But this was our backup. It was cheaper for us to go through a health cost sharing ministry than it was to go on the government, what do you call it, the Affordable Care Act site. And even when they're subsidizing it like crazy. And part of the reason is because with the health cost sharing ministry, you're quote unquote self-pay, which means you're paying about a third of the price that they would normally charge to a fifth of the cost, maybe even cheaper, I don't know. But you're able to lower the cost down quite significantly compared to what the health insurance companies pay. So it was very advantageous, and that's the way we would have went should we needed it. Some other ways to lower your expenses is to buy cheaper and older, more fuel-efficient cars that are reliable. Just buy used. There's a sweet spot between, and I actually ran the math on this a number of years ago when I taught a financial class, between 5 and 8 years. If you buy within that, you're really hitting that point in which the car has depreciated to a point where it's now stabilized. So if you buy it around 5 to 8 years, you're not going to be taking as much of a hit if you were to resell it. Whereas if you were to buy a brand new car, it depreciates something like 40% right off the lot. And then if you were to resell it, you would, if it was a $10,000 car, you would only get $6,000 for it, something like that. Don't quote me on the numbers exactly, but it's something absolutely ridiculous. I encourage you to Google this yourself. But what we did is years ago, we looked for the most reliable cars that have low maintenance costs. We just did our research, and then we targeted between 5 and 8 years old. And then we just went after it. We found low mileage. We wanted ones with low mileage that were well maintained, and that was it. And we got it. And you'll have people, every time I tell this to someone that needs help, they usually say, well, I need something reliable. You don't understand. You don't understand. You don't understand. I hear that all the time. I need reliable. I can't deal with cars. I don't know how to work on them. I don't want to work on them. And I need to make sure I can get to work. Well, I can tell you, I have family and friends that have new cars, and their car is in the shop about as much as mine. No joke. I have Honda CR-Vs. We have two. I was also looking at the RAV4s. If you want to look at those are very fuel efficient, good cars that are cheap relative to other cars and low cost of maintenance, and they just last forever. Not to say we haven't had our issues, but the difference in payments between the difference in the amount of money spent on the car compared to a new car, I could buy 4 Honda CR-Vs compared to the one new car that someone might buy, of the same class. And if I were to take the difference and just save that money, I could literally buy 4 of those cars, 3 to 4 of those cars, according to my math. And you want to talk about reliability? I could have 3 cars right there, guaranteed, with the amount of money that you're spending on that brand new car. You want to talk about reliability? It's unmatched. One car doesn't start, I go to the next one. And there's no guarantee that your new car is going to start. You just have it under warranty, which you're paying a premium for. So think about that. My insurance could be an entirely whole new backup car if I wanted to. But you know what? We don't need that because we were a 1-car family for a long time as well. And I would just use public transportation. I lived by public transportation so I could get to work, and I biked everywhere I could. So we were a 1-car family for a while, and that's another way to lower your expenses. But either way, we have 2 cars now, and they're both we both bought them in that age range that I talked about, and it's worked out very well. We've had some big expenses, but you know what? I still am way ahead. In fact, I could in one of my cars compared to a new car, I could get a whole new engine, a whole new transmission, labor included, all for cheaper than what they're paying for that new car when I ran the math. I stay away from leases. I stay away from all that stuff because I'm going to talk about it. Let's just segue there right now. I pay cash for everything. That's one of the things I do is if you can avoid all the debt and the interest payments, you're going to lower your monthly expenses. I know it's hard to think that way when you're financially strapped, but if you're able to save, and we all should be able to save if we're cutting back our expenses, then we can actually pay cash for everything, therefore lowering the expenses even further. And that's a secret right there. If you can do that, pay cash for everything, that's like genius move. Your expenses are super low. Now you can, of course, have an expense pop up here and there, but you have a pile of cash for your next car that you've been saving for, which you can quote unquote call your payment. And should you run into an emergency, you got that there, and it's pretty good. As we pay cash for it, we don't buy the warranty stuff because I self-insure on it. I don't need to buy a warranty for a $400 television. I'll just go over and say, I'll buy another $400 television should this one break within the year that they give me. Or if it goes bad after a year, because that's not catastrophic. But I do insure my house because I can't replace the house as easily. So I only buy warranties on things that I can't self-insure against, or that it would be a strain on my finances if I were to self-insure. And that includes our health, right? So pay cash for everything. We stay away from credit cards because someone's got to be putting up those buildings, and that's on interest payments and defaulted single mothers and whoever else is, struggling, people who are bad with their money. They're the ones putting up the skyscrapers for all those banks who are encouraging you to go into debt. And then, trust me, there are people who can get ahead on that, on the whole credit card thing, but I think it's on the backs of the people who aren't doing financially well, who rely on that stuff, who then really get themselves behind the 8 ball. So paying cash for everything, hard to go wrong. If you're looking for resources on how to do that and how to get out of debt, Dave Ramsey is who I used, and I highly recommend him and his team. He's got a podcast. If you haven't heard of him, he's got all the fun stuff. A lot of great stuff out of him. With living well below your means and how to do that, you're going to need to go over and know where your money's going. You're going to have to take a wise approach to budgeting, and I call that zero-based budgeting. It's the wisest approach I can figure out. So zero-based budgeting can help track and control your spending because you know where your dollars are going. In fact, the zero-based budgeting part of it is saying, say if you had $10,000 in the bank, you're going to assign each one of those dollars to something. And, you might have $5,000 in your emergency fund, and you assign $5,000 there. Then you have $200 of what you're saving towards your next car, and you assign that there. And you basically just assign it all the way to zero, till all of your dollars are assigned. You might have some extra money, and you have to decide where you're going to put that money. All right. And if you are short on the month with your dollars, then you need to know where you're going to pull it from. And it keeps you very intentional about your spending. And I highly recommend that. I use an app called YNAB, YNAB. It stands for You Need a Budget. But there's other apps out there that use zero-based budgeting. For example, Every Dollar is the one that is promoted by the Ramsey team. Dave Ramsey, I think it's actually their app, if I'm not mistaken. And I think budgeting is essential when you're trying to be careful with your money. So if you're looking, I think it's essential all around. I'm on the bandwagon with it, and then I fall off. As long as you're getting back on, I think it's important, because sometimes I think I can out-earn my stupidity, and that's just not true. I miss out on so much if I do that. And the way I do that, though, how do I figure out where I spend my money? I have the zero-based budgeting approach. Well, what do I focus my money on? Well, the average American wants a nice big house, and they're paying for that. I focus my money on what matters to me and my family. So we have goals. We're very intentional about where the direction we're trying to head. And I encourage you to prioritize your spending on what truly brings you joy. I call it joyful spending. You might hear, if you've ever been in the personal finance world, I used to teach a class to people who wanted to know more. You always hear the gurus say, don't spend money on coffee. That money is thousands of dollars a year. And if you were to just go over and invest that, you would be rich. And there's truth in that. But if coffee brings you joy, and that's the one thing that you truly love, and you don't want cable, and you don't want this, you don't want that, you want a small house, hey, buy your coffee. I don't care. Spend money on things that give you joy. For example, we, in our house, are converting a box truck to a stealth RV. This is very expensive. We live in, like I said, a less than 1,200 square foot home. That is very small. But we decide to target our money so we can travel, because that's very important to us. And we're very happy with the amount of space we have. I could certainly use more. I want more, but not at the expense of traveling. That's a bigger priority. That's what's going to bring us and our family joy. So we use the 80-20 principle to be able to figure out how to spend our money. You can list out everything you want and then just focus on the top 20% of that. And that's your top. When I say top 20, I mean like the most important things to you. You list out 10 things, 2 of those things you can select as the most important. The 80-20 principle is also known as the Pareto principle. If you've never heard of it, please look it up, because it's going to help you make a lot of quick decisions. In addition, as far as focusing on joyful spending, don't compete with the Joneses. That's by definition not joyful spending. You're actually doing it in the opposite way, which is trying to make appearances. That is not what makes you happy. By definition, it makes you look like, other people's perception of you is whatever you're trying to project. But if you're focusing on that, it's not actually what brings you joy. It's what the perception of success that you're trying to put out there is the goal. And that's just going to suck your money right away. And I decided very early on that I did not want to compete with other people for looking successful. I'll pick small ways, like I might get some nice outfits. I might, spend some money on my haircut or something like that. So that way, but it's that 80-20 principle. I'm going to focus on the 20% that truly is impactful in bringing me joy. And a big house is currently not one of them, unfortunately, even though I would like more room. Moving on. Let's see here. I'm kind of going out of order of my little outline here. One of the things we did was we did downsize our home. We wanted to live very, very under our means, right? The average square foot of a house is 2,300 square feet, like I reported earlier, according to, as reported by Bankrate.com, and you're spending over $400,000 on that. Well, if you're able to downsize your home, you're going to not just save on a monthly payment, okay? You're also going to save on interest, on energy costs, on utilities, on capital expenditures like maybe central air or a roof. It's all going to get cheaper. If you extend yourself too far, maintenance is going to be cheaper. All this stuff. If you extend yourself out too far with the costs that you're putting into a home, you're just going to sink money into it. And while there's a good argument to be had, as long as you're appreciating, that's fine. Well, if your goal is to do home education and you're looking to trim expenditures, this is not a good strategy. Okay, so if you downsize, that can make quite a difference. In addition, one of the strategies that we've employed is we not just downsized. Let me back up. Before I got married, me and my wife both rented. She had a place, I had a place. It was always multifamily. And with the exception of us staying with family at times, it was always just like this multifamily unit, right? And I thought, well, what if instead of me paying rent to someone else, I bought the place, same thing, a multifamily unit, and someone writes a check to me? Wouldn't that be nice? Why don't I just flip that on its head? So I bought a double. In my neighborhood, there's a lot of multifamilies, in particular doubles, where we have two. When I say double, it means 2 units. So I live in the upper and we have tenants in the lower. And one of the benefits of this is someone is literally cutting me a check every month. When I bought this house, it literally covered the entire mortgage. No joke. Now we still have to pay property taxes, which is also, if you downsize, your property taxes go down as well. So that's another thing I didn't mention. But when you invest in a multifamily and you're just living in your quote unquote apartment that you own, people are cutting you checks. So you reduce your expenses even further. And if you want to just pour that money back into the house to get rid of the payment, you're going to reduce your expenses even further. So just think about that when you're looking for your next place. These are just little hacks that make so much of a difference. Because if I can get my housing down to almost nothing, which is, it's not uncommon to see housing costs from a third to 40% of someone's income. I might be off with the numbers just a little bit, but in the United States, that's what people are paying. Go well under that. Keep it under 25%. Heck, if you can get the multi-family, then you're going to be well under that if you're getting that rental check. Just don't depend on that rental check. That's my one piece of advice. Because, things happen like COVID. They gave the rent moratorium and it just caused issues for a whole bunch of landlords. Moving on. Another thing that people often don't want to compromise is they want to live in their whatever, the Manhattan, or they want to live in San Francisco or LA or Hawaii and all these different places, Denver, that are just super, super, super expensive. And I understand why they're expensive, because they're very desirable places. However, you're making a choice that you want to live in Chicago or wherever it might be, which is really expensive. And that is more important than your kids' home education. If it's truly a goal to home educate your kids, start looking at other more affordable areas. The more rural you go, the more cheap in general it is, more affordable it is. But you can live in a major city and still have affordable housing. For example, I live in a low cost of living city like Cleveland Metro. We have a lake that looks like the ocean. I like living by the water. I live a mile off the water. It's a temperate zone. I actually enjoy a temperate zone. We get a lot of snow, and that's okay with me because we don't really have to drive too much in it, unfortunately. We don't, people from California who have a 2-bedroom bungalow going for $1.2 million, they sell that and they come to Cleveland and they're able to buy this, $300,000 house that is twice as big as what they had out there. And man, talk about getting your life back. You don't have to have 2 jobs. You could and they buy these things cash. That's part of the reason why it's driving up housing in Cleveland, is because people from these high cost of living areas are coming in and buying a place and paying full price on it because they got the money, because they're used to high cost of living, and it's just affordable to them, or it's like cheap to them. But just focus on the amenities that are important to you, the quality of life stuff, and then go target that area. Maybe it's Kansas City, maybe it's Columbus, Ohio, maybe it's Cleveland, maybe it's Detroit. Believe it or not, Detroit has a lot of nice neighborhoods. I used to live up that way too. It doesn't have to be the city center, right? So take a look at that, and that should also help lower your expenses. And you could even go to somewhere like, if you want warm weather, like Houston. Houston has affordable housing because they just don't have any natural barriers to stop them from building out. Even a lot of Florida has low cost of living. And in states like Texas and Florida don't have an income tax. Think about that. That's huge. Another way to reduce your expenses is eliminate unnecessary subscriptions. And this kind of goes back to that budgeting. You got to pay attention to what you're spending your money on. I know a guy who had 2 Prime subscriptions. He didn't know this for years. Not watching your money. Get rid of the magazine subscription or whatever it is in 2024 that people always have. Maybe it's cable TV. Maybe it's Netflix that you don't even use or something, but really take a close eye at that and think about how much money you would save. It might end up to being in the thousands and you don't even notice, or it's a very small sacrifice. We got rid of cable. We were an early adopter. We got rid of the landline. I never had a landline. And 20 years ago, that was kind of fringe. It's weird to say that now, but we got rid of, I never purchased cable with the exception of one roommate who insisted. Outside of that, never had cable TV, and that was unheard of, but I just relied on streaming services, which back then was kind of weird. But now it's like the norm. Be ahead of the curve. Get rid of some of these unnecessary things, find ways around it. Childcare costs. If you were to, you're probably paying for childcare in some form, right? If you have younger kids. If you were to stay at home, you wouldn't have that expense. The average cost of childcare in 2023, according to Bloomberg, is $11,500. That is money in your pocket. A dollar saved is a dollar earned. A full 100% of the dollar is back to you. You can eliminate these costs, and that's per kid. Okay. Now, school aged, you got free childcare. Quote unquote free. You're paying for it through your taxes, but this childcare thing, you can save a lot of money with by having a parent stay at home. So that's another way to save a lot of money. Another way to save a lot of money in as far as childcare costs are concerned is figuring out a way, like maybe you do want to work. Both parents want to work. Well, start finding other families trying to do the same thing and start sharing the resources, right? They watch your kids one day, you watch them the next. Their kids the next. And that's a cool way to socialize your kid as well, and that meets more than one goal, in my opinion. So, this could be childcare co-ops, other stay-at-home parents, just pooling these resources and building your community is even better. So you have like backup people too, in case things are going wrong, right? And let me see if there's anything else I wanted to cover, because I think we're going to make this one a 2-part episode, because I haven't even got into ways to increase your income. Actually, you know what? I don't have as many ways to increase income, so I'm just going to move through these, because reducing costs is definitely where to start. And I think I've covered that one enough. But yeah, reduce your expenses, and that's $1 back in your pocket every single time. So the other end of it is to increase your income, right? I'm just going to say the most obvious one is to have strategic career planning. Choose careers that allow you to just live off one income. If you haven't looked into nursing, nursing is paying really great money. It's a 2-year degree. It's 1 year if you already have a bachelor's, if you go into an accelerated program. I'm a respiratory therapist. I like respiratory therapy as well. That's another way, and they're paying big bucks right now. But don't go into crazy debt to do this, because that's just an added expense, and we're trying to stay away from that. But look at these high-paying careers, so that way you can just stay at home, and you combine that with reducing your income, boom, you're going to be able to do it. It might take a transition. Don't get me wrong. You might have to transition. And again, stay out of debt. Don't go into student loan debt. That's the worst debt you could ever sign up for. But hey, on the other end of it, it may be really worth it. All right. You can work as needed. That's what I do. Where I sign up for my own hours. The only thing I have to commit to is 40 hours within a 6-week period with the hospital that I work for. And I can do that around my own time. When I can find childcare for free, like my parents might watch the kids, or families might be able to help us out, stuff like that, or the kids are away at this or that. So strategically, we're able to make it work, or we stagger with, my wife works 3/12s. I can work 3/12s on the other day, and we still get, on the other days of the week, and we still get a day as a family together when we're in the grind. And that's 2 full-time jobs with a parent at home 24/7 with our children. In addition, if you are already a stay-at-home parent and you're happy with what you got, you can do side work as a stay-at-home parent. This can get you, you can get a lot of money. You can get 10 more thousand for a little part-time job that you do at home. Could be freelance writing or editing on on like sites like Upwork, or it could be a virtual assistant. It doesn't pay much, but you can do that remotely. Online tutoring, teaching, selling stuff on Etsy, or even doing drop shipping, social media marketing, managing, anything that you feel called to do. These little side hustles do end up adding to a lot, and you can do that while your kids are outside playing. So something to think about. You could even start, that's freelance work. You could also start a small business, have your kids jump in, generate some money. You can even start up a Roth IRA for them if you hire them, and you are allowed to hire your kids. It doesn't violate labor laws, as long as you're look in your own state laws and everything, but you are allowed to do that as a parent. And this could be lawn care services, landscaping, homemade baked goods, catering, pet sitting, or dog walking, or tour guides, or whatever it might be. Figure out how to start your own little business, and then you can actually write off a lot of that money on your business that you, if you're taking a hit on that business, and you can pay your children, and that would be their college fund if you put it in a Roth IRA, because you can use a Roth IRA for college. And that's after money tax. And you can, if they're 10 years old and that grows over 30 years and now they're 40 and they do the math, plug it into an investment calculator. Trust me, you're going to think it's wild. Another thing you can do is just remote work opportunities. Find a job that actually allows you to stay home, be with your kids. There's a lot more out there than there were in the past. That's going to save you money on childcare and commuting, and it's just going to free up your time. There are websites dedicated to finding just remote workers. Maybe it's a hybrid option. That's something else too. And ultimately, what you need to do in order to truly own your time is invest. And that's the last thing I'm going to talk about, is if you invest now, it will pay dividends later by definition. Okay? So if I'm putting away, personally, I put at least 15% away. Truly in this house, it's at least 20% or more. We're doing about, in total, probably about a third of our, if you add it all up, it's about a third with all the employer matches and everything. But, as far as my money, I'm putting in about 25%. I think it's like 26% right now of our total income. And, that with all the matches and everything else, it's well over that. You have to invest. I have the multifamily that we live in. Well, that is going to continue to pay me as well, right? And when I get that paid off and everything, it's going to be way better. And you can really see that you can make it if you just tweak it and you go against the grain. You're not competing with the Joneses, and you just figure it out. So look into resources like Dave Ramsey. Look into budgeting apps like YNAB or Every Dollar. Look at explore websites like Upwork or Fiverr for side work opportunities, and look for businesses that you want to start. You might get grants or loans. Even the state can give you stuff for home education that might even make it easier. Connect with local unschooling and homeschooling groups and start sharing and figure it all out. You can do this if you want it, if you prioritize it. If you got a 3-bedroom, small little bungalow house in an affordable area, and you have remote work and you're staggering it with your spouse or something like that, tell me you can't make that work. You can do anything that you put your mind to. You might have to go back and get another degree, or you might just have to go over and find a mentor so you can start that business. But you can do it. Even in 2024, and even if it was worse than it is now, I still think you can do it. So with that, I'll end today's episode. It's on the longer side. So stay curious, stay unschooled, and stay away from the algebra nightmares. I'll catch you in the next episode. We're officially celebrating, by the way, 1 year of Unschooled Unleashed. Please leave a rating and review to celebrate this. It would really mean a lot to me. We haven't had a lot of reviews lately. Really, they all came when we started. We're 1 year in, guys. If you appreciate what I've done, what we tried to put out to the community, just trying to help you guys out, please leave a rating and review. It really helps share the episode. Catch you in the next episode. So here's where we roll up our sleeves and bring out the big guns. If you support our mission, then please leave a review. On Unschooled Unleashed, we are talking about using a radical approach to education in today's world, and the more 5-star reviews we have, the more people will feel comfortable with the ideas, strategies, and principles we discuss. It gives legitimacy to our message, and the podcast's algorithm prioritizes us so we can reach more people. You may even have your 5-star review read on our podcast. Before I let you go, I have to pause and say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Your presence here is the fuel that ignites this movement. I am incredibly moved that you trust in us enough to click play. You, my friends, are the caped heroes in this story, the guardians of your family's learning journey, and a beacon of hope for your community. Be bold. Do what you think is best for you and your family. Thanks again for tuning in and taking this courageous leap outside of the box for this educational revolution. Welcome to the front line.